Welcome back. I'm going to read a question that I received recently from a follower. She puts, "Hi Tracy, do you have any advice on how I can deal with an angry coworker at a doctor's office who has had a lot of trauma in her life and she is taking it out on me? I think she doesn't like me because I'm happy and treat all the patients with kindness and a happy vibe. Any advice will be greatly appreciated. I follow you and you inspire me so much. Thank you for all you do." She added in, "My work days are miserable, always thinking about how she hates me and how to make it better." Well, it makes complete sense that this person spends her workday pretty miserable, considering she's spending several hours of her day with someone who she feels like doesn't like her. And that doesn't make anyone feel comfortable. So it would make complete sense that this would make it difficult and miserable, as the person shared. I cannot tell you how many times this comes up in coaching with one of my clients, where they share they really just are miserable at work. And when we address the reasons why, I almost always find that it's not actually what the person does. It's someone they work with, or maybe more than one person, that just plays such a big role on compromising the environment. And sometimes the client will share with me that they feel targeted by a particular person. And I also find that in most cases, it's because the person, my client, like the person who reached out, is happy and positive, and they give out an energy that is received well by others. So they're likable people. It would make complete sense that they would be, considering they're putting out a positive energy to others. Welcome. I'm Tracy Hensel. I'm a certified professional coach and ICF credential holder. I help people just like you live the life that you desire. I help you to see potential in who you are and what you bring to this world. I also help my clients in health and wellness, as well as navigating difficult relationships. There is nothing that is off the table when it comes to life coaching. If you'd like to learn more about me, please check out my coaching and consulting website, and also my personal brand website. So a couple of things that came up for me in what I read is, how do I deal? And that's usually the word that people use, is how do I deal? And I get it, but what you have to understand is we have absolutely no control over other people. And I would be willing to bet that this person who reached out, regardless of what she does, it will make no difference. Because when people come off in an ugly nature, meaning they show up with catabolic or negative energy, it is coming from them. So it's not anything that you've done to upset them, but you better believe if you have a happy disposition about you, that is going to trigger them. Other people that show up more in a negative way like they do, they're going to be, the negative person is going to often be kinder and nicer to that person because they're kind of in the same box, right? They're showing up the same way. But when you're a complete contrast to that, they're very threatened by you. And that is why you become their target. Now, the person who reached out also mentioned that she had some trauma in her life. While that's unfortunate, I think every one of you watching today can agree that you've had some type of trauma in your life. The problem that we have as society has kind of stigmatized what trauma is. And trauma is something major or catastrophic. But simple things like going through a divorce is very traumatic. In my 16 years of coaching, I have found that everyone has some form of trauma in their life. There's definitely capital T trauma, and that's the really big, significant things. But we all have experienced some type of trauma. Again, some big trauma and some little t trauma. And if you took my recent workshop, Live a Mastery Life, I talked more in depth about little t trauma and how every one of us has had something in our life that is at least little t trauma. So while this person who was showing up in a negative way towards others, especially the person who reached out, a coworker of hers, yeah, she may have had trauma, just like we all have, and maybe her trauma seems very big and significant, but at the end of the day, does that give anyone any right to be disrespectful or hurtful or rude to others? Many people believe that because of what I've gone through, I have every right to show up the way that I do, and you're happy because you didn't deal with this. You didn't have this trauma in your life. But at the end of the day, you've had things as well. And by no means does this mean I'm not saying be empathetic to people's trauma or their experiences. A wonderful people skill is to be empathetic about what someone else may have endured. But that does not give anyone any right to be rude or disrespectful. So while you can be empathetic to what they endured, the pain they endured, you don't need to be sympathetic or empathetic to how they show up. So at the end of the day, we have to just believe people when they show us who they are. The person who reached out needs to just come to terms with this person is unhappy with her life, and she's allowing whatever happened in her past to call the shots. She has no power over that. It's taken power over her, and that's unfortunate, but we can't do anything about that. If that person decides to get help, and I hope that she does, in some type of helping modality, if it's not coaching, maybe therapy or counseling, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden she's going to flip a switch. There's probably a lot going on for that person coming away from her past. You have to let it go. But the big question is, how do I deal with it? Because the person who reached out, and often like what my client shares with me, they're miserable because of this environment. And we talk all the time in coaching, and I talk here on YouTube about boundary setting. Well, we know that there's some relationships we can simply walk away from. If you have a friend who really has shown you over the years that they're just not really pulling weight in what you expect out of a friend, or this friend no longer serves you, well, it may be difficult, but you have every right to walk away from a relationship that doesn't serve you. Maybe you have a loved one who the relationship with them doesn't serve you. Well, you get to decide what that relationship looks like and how much of your precious and valuable time you're going to give to that loved one. That's called boundary setting. We know that getting rid of all relationships is not always in our best interest because it can impact other people. So when I work with a client in coaching, we talk about how many other people would be impacted if you stepped away from this relationship altogether. If you're in a big friend circle and you step away, you may be stepping away from the entire circle. If you step away from a loved one, who else may pay the price if the two of you can no longer be together? So we explore a lot in coaching, and it's never about me. It's always about the client and what will serve them. I don't advise in coaching because I believe that the client, just like I believe this person has the answers, I just will help her find what will serve her best. But when we're forced to being around someone because we work with them every single day, How do you navigate that? And I like to use the word navigate because dealing is just going to leave you helpless, hopeless, and feeling defeated because you really can't deal with them. They're going to show up as they choose to show up, and they get to. Give them permission, take yourself out of it, and give them permission to show up exactly how they desire because they're going to anyway. So when you release that, it's powerful. But you have to decide what your boundaries look like for them. If you're going over the top, trying so hard to get this person, this unhappy, this showing up in an ugly way person to like you, and you go above and beyond, you're probably exasperated, and it would make sense that you would be. You have to step back and say, I can't do anything to make this person happy, and while it's unfortunate, the pain she's endured, there's no reasoning for her to show up the way she does. I'm going to give her that ownership that she is choosing to show up the way she does, just as I'm choosing to show up the way that I do with my past, because I've had it as well, right? We have to quit letting people off the hook for how they show up, holding them accountable. But how do you hold them accountable? You set up the boundaries. You decide what it looks like. It's unfortunate that you are going to be facing this person every single day, or at least probably 5 days per week, and they're draining and they're taxing. So the only person that you can work on is yourself in what your relationship with them while at work, to be respectful and to comply to the rules of how we show up with others in the workplace, which is often in a kind, polite manner. But don't go above and beyond exasperating yourself to try to mend something that literally can't be mended, because there's nothing to mend. You've done nothing. They are just choosing to show up this way. And because you're happy and you're positive and you're putting out anabolic energy that others are drawn to, we're always going to be drawn to more positive, happy people. They're likable. We're drawn to them. You leave people better than you found them, and she tries to drag people down the rabbit hole and be stuck with her. She's showing you who she is. You have to believe her. If at all possible, keep things very short and very matter of fact. Another tool that we use in coaching is A for acknowledge and V for validate. Acknowledge and validate. So let's just say this negative person is complaining to you. Well, you can always acknowledge and validate what they share they're feeling. If they come to you and they say, I'm so frustrated, this patient continues to complain and take advantage of me. It makes complete sense. You'd feel frustrated based on the fact that this patient evidently is taking advantage of you. And you're not agreeing with her. A lot of people think that when you acknowledge and validate, you're agreeing with someone. I didn't agree at all. I'm just acknowledging and validating that you're frustrated. And you would be amazed how comforted that other person feels just by knowing that they were acknowledged and validated, even though you never supported them. In fact, you believe she got what she deserved. Because if you're putting out negative energy is going to come right back at you, right? We draw in what we put out. So you're not agreeing with it. You feel she got what she deserved, but you're acknowledging and validating and then walk away. If you ever are in a more close, intimate conversation with her, it makes complete sense that you're unhappy considering what you've endured in your life. So you're not agreeing with her behavior one bit. You're not buying into it. You're over it. But it makes complete sense that she's unhappy for her. You're just choosing something different in your life. So this is hard. And I'll share for those of you that work from home, work remotely, run a business from home like I do. One of the things I'm so grateful for is I don't have to be in an environment where one person can compromise the environment. And I know that when I did work outside of the home, I would say that that's what I recall is it was never that I didn't enjoy the work I was doing or the job or the employer. there usually just happened to be one person that just compromised the dynamics, compromised the culture, and it's unfortunate. And I hope employers start really taking stock on this more. And honestly, at the end of the day, weed those out that just aren't a great fit, because having one person compromise all the coworkers and the culture of that environment can leave people feeling miserable. And it can really reflect on what's being put out. So even as an employer, I think it's something that really needs to be considered. But it takes time. It takes time and a lot of awareness, and often it just gets swept under the rug, or because of legal purposes now and people relying on people using discrimination or whatever, you have to be so much more careful, right? You have to be so much careful. But it's really sad that this has happened, and it does happen. And I hope that if you're someone watching today and you've experienced this, or maybe that you found some value in what I shared. But at the end of the day, keep your head high, chin up, crown on. If you're a happy, positive person, don't let anyone trip you up. Don't say yes to that. Just stay true to who you are, and you'll always feel good about that. And at the end of the day, believe people when they show you who they are, because that's who they are. I believe you for who you are. So, all right, thanks for sticking it out. Thank you to the person who submitted that. I did get back with her and encouraged her to watch me here on YouTube to hear what I have to say, but I felt this was one that so many of you could relate to, so it was worth reading it here and doing a video. And I have so much content on YouTube about difficult people, draining people, toxic relationships. I will try to put a whole library together, and I'll have that in the description box below this video, as well as on the corresponding blog post. And if you didn't take my recent Live a Mastery Life workshop, where I walk you through how to create daily documents to check in with yourself, this negative person, she would benefit so much from having some type of daily check-in to check herself. I may be unhappy, and that's okay. And I have my valid reasons, but today I'm going to choose to show up differently. I don't need to be controlled by my past or what I've endured, my pain. I can choose happiness, and I can choose, even if I'm not happy, to show up in a way that at night when I go to bed, I'm proud of. I'll share with you, a lot of people like this, deep down, they don't like themselves. And that's really sad, to not like yourself. And I know this because I've even worked with clients just like the negative person that my follower described. And I have literally heard this: Tracy, I don't like myself. I am a complete to other people, and I can't fix it. And even if I try, I feel awkward because everyone knows me as a beep, right? Yeah, that's hard. That's hard. And I'd love to help if that's you. But I definitely encourage you to take advantage of the Live a Mastery Life workshop so that you can benefit from having some type of check-in to take stock on you. I'll have a link in the description box below this video where you can take advantage of that. All right, thanks for being here.